Welcome everyone to another episode of Conversations That Matter. Today with me for you is Monica Tanner, relationship coach and person who is serving the community, couples, individuals with not only an advice, but quite huge palette of tools that is supporting you on a daily life. Monica is the host of the podcast Secrets of Happily After. She is also the author of Date Night Journal. It's quite interesting one, available on Amazon, and link you can find down in the description under the video. And also author of the upcoming book, which I believe we all shall read, Bad Marriage Advice. And Monica is breaking the 15 myths about what?
That will
Monica,
make you
we will be
miserable.
talking about that. Welcome,
Yeah,
Monica, and thank you very much for being here with us.
absolutely. I'm so glad we finally connected.
Yes, for our audience, we had some nice energy that took some time for us to get together, but for me, it's a sign that it will be a great interview.
So true. I think it's the time difference, right? Because you're in
In Belgium.
Belgium, right? So, I mean, your night is my day.
Yes, exactly. So I do hope that, yes, we are also proving the time is not a limit. The time zone is not the limit. And that's the beauty of today, opportunities that the technology is giving us. You are working with couples, you are working with individuals and supporting people around building healthy relationships.
Yes.
But here I do have some data that I have prepared, and I wonder about many things regarding that. I found in 2000 in US, average couple getting married was 8.2 per 1,000 people. In Europe, in 2000, in Europe, it declined to from 7.8 to 5.2. So that's the 25 years ago. It's huge. It's a low number actually. Right now in US is stable, so it's around 8 couples are getting married per 1,000 population. In Europe, still declining, and we are right now 2019 4.3, 2022 4.2.
Wow. So, do you think that couples are cohabitating but not getting married, or do you think there's just less couples?
I think the first thought was around marriage, that
Uh-huh.
so
Right.
little people are getting married. And actually, in social media, we hear about that quite a lot. People are in relationships, long relationships,
But
but
not
not
getting married.
necessarily getting married.
That's so sad. I wonder if that's because they don't believe that people can stay married long term or they're not interested in that. I'm not sure.
When we go, the 2000, how old I was? I was 20 years old.
Okay.
The previous generation was already getting married in that time. My mom, my grandmother, when we go back just 2, 3 generations back, which is not so far, they were getting married quite
Yeah.
early.
Mhm.
The quality of marriage we can question because the societal norms were regulating. But right now, from your experience, as you are shocked, I'm also shocked with the data, how it is your perception in terms of you are working with them directly?
Yeah. I mean, we do expect a lot more from marriage now than they did before. I think
Mm,
in earlier generations, all people expected from marriage was some sort of companionable arrangement where, two people work together to get the work of life done.
mm,
Whereas now we expect our marriage partners to be our friends, our lovers, someone who challenges us, somebody who completes us, somebody who, is a lifelong, not just a companion, but a lover and somebody that we dream with, right? And so I think that our expectations for marriage are much higher. And I also think that our expectations of a monogamous, long-term, lifelong marriage are lower. And so that is a sad statistic to me that I would imagine couples overseas, not in the US, um, don't believe that living a life with another person is necessarily now the gold standard or what they're looking for. So maybe they're just I mean, I still believe that for all people, people crave connection and companionship and, really intimacy with another person. I think we need that
mm.
from the time we're babies to the time we die. And so I think they're still looking for that arrangement, but probably don't have faith in the marriage institution like we did before. And that's probably what explains those numbers.
Do you think it might be related to the sociological aspects? We live fast, we want to live good
Yeah.
with no commitments.
Yes. And I think the rising generation has less of a tolerance for discomfort. And so they feel like life should just be comfortable all the time. And so if the person that they've chosen to live with or be with makes life uncomfortable, which is
Mm,
one of the tenets of marriage, why marriage is such a people growing machine and so desirable is because there is a level of discomfort in living with another person and working with another person and communicating and figuring out the bumps in the
mm.
road. So I think the rising generation, they just think, well, for as long as it works, we'll be together. But as soon as a problem arises or I'm feeling uncomfortable or, there's some work to be done, I'll move on and find somebody else. And I think that's very tragic because I, I, I believe that we all have childhood wounding,
Mm.
some much more deeply than others. And so I think that in the bounds of a loving, committed relationship, we can heal those wounds. But whenever we come up against you know, whenever we come up against that, if we're like, oh, I must be with the wrong person, or, I'll move on and find somebody else, we're not giving ourselves the opportunity to heal within a committed, loving relationship. We just keep moving that down the line, down the road, until hopefully we find somebody that we want to spend the rest of our lives with. But it sounds like that's not happening as much.
Do you think that it's also because we are not equipped with right knowledge, with right inspiration, how the world in a family shall look like?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do think that our parents and grandparents didn't understand or maybe model what we think about now as a committed, intimate, passionate relationship. And so it's a relatively new concept to create intimacy and passion with your partner over the long term. I think it absolutely can be done. I think that our expectations of marriage are high, but also reasonable and attainable. And so, one of the myths, I think, one of the most important myths that I write about in my book is this idea that happily ever after doesn't exist. I think that's a myth. And so, if we don't believe that happily ever after exists, we're not going to shoot for it. We're not going to make it a goal. We're going to either get really complacent with what we have, or we're not going to enter the marriage relationship at all. We're just going to keep moving on and kicking that down the road, which to me is a very sad, turn of events. I think you're missing out on a lot of the relational joy and beauty that comes from being in a committed long-term relationship.
No, sometimes I am watching the Ramsay show.
Mm-hmm.
He speaks and his team, they are talking, of course, about the financial
Mm-hmm.
issues,
Yeah.
but there are people calling with financial issues for the advice that are related to the breakdowns in the marriage.
Yeah.
And sometimes it occurs that they don't know each other. They got married, and after 20, 30 years, when finances hits, suddenly we discover with whom we have been married. Why do you think people are losing, as you said, we do have expectations, but then how it's possible we don't know with whom we are married?
I don't know if it's we don't know whom we're married to. I think especially I work with lots of couples who have been married 20 or 30 years. They get to the end of their child rearing stage and they realize that they've created a family around the children
Mm.
instead of around the couple, which is what I teach. And so they lose sight of their relationship. They haven't been working on it. They haven't been intentional about it. They haven't been continuously dating each other and nurturing that relationship between the two of them. And because the world we live in now, there is more financial choice. But usually, I find most often that the husband and the wife both work, which is wonderful. But it gives a lot of financial freedom. So they finish raising their kids leave the home, and they realize they come to a crossroads and they're like, well, I don't really love this person that I've just been doing life with. And we raised the kids. And is there really a reason for us to stay together now for the last, 25, 30 years of our life? Or do we separate and find other partners that, we don't have all of this baggage with? And so, yeah, I see a lot of couples who kind of turn to each other one day when the kids have left the home and they think, is this really worth fighting for? Or should we just
Mm.
kind of call it quits? So, I think it's not that they don't know each other. It's just that so much life has happened and we're evolving and changing and growing every single day. So if we don't stay connected intentionally while we're raising our children and building our businesses and, you know, d- developing our careers, then one day we'll look at each other and be like, I don't know this person anymore. And maybe I don't want to be with them anymore.
I agree with you. At some point, parents are indeed creating this kind of bubble only around kids, and quite often the conversations at the dinner table are only around kids. And what I also noticed that people getting into the relationship, they are not keeping this independency for having own time. They are immediately mixing, and for some time they are living in that way, because I call it a pinkish glass season. Yes, it may take 3 months, it may take 2 years. But we created this kind of season for us that we are one, then the kids are coming and we lose ourselves. The
Mhm.
family becomes responsibility. We don't have the passion. As you said, money give easy exit opportunity. And it sounds like people are more likely to choose comfort over commitment.
Mhm. Yeah,
The
I think
neighbor's
all of
grass,
them.
the neighbor's grass is greener.
Yeah, I think people have all of those thoughts.
Do you think that, because in schools we don't have this kind of education. At home, they will not tell us too much about their struggle. Yes, we see our grandparents very happy, but we don't know what had happened before.
Mhm.
And indeed, might be this dependency, because before it was the man provider,
Mhm.
woman was carrier and manager of the house.
Mhm.
Yes, that's why they had the opportunity to have 3, 5, 7 kids. Today, we need to work
Mhm.
both.
Mhm.
But also, we cannot say our grandparents didn't have issues.
Mhm.
But the social norms were different. Divorce have been seen not positive. Right now, that's the everyday fresh bread.
Yeah. Mhm. So true. I mean, yes, divorce doesn't have the stigma it once did. Couples are usually financially independent from one another. Roles are very confused, I think, now. I think that it is uncomfortable and difficult to create a marriage where everybody gets what they want.
Mm.
And that is what I teach. That's what I spend so much time working on with couples is how to ask for or request what you want out of the marriage. I think it's so important if you're going to create a healthy, thriving, long-term, passionate, intimate marriage, which is, I think, what we all crave and want, right? That's the gold standard. You have to be able to ask for what you want in a skillful way and to continuously take on your partner so that you're both showing up and getting what you want out of the relationship. You're co-creating a, a relationship where there's room for both partners to thrive independently and together. And so, and with more emphasis on independence. So we independently create what we want in the relationship. We become very strong independently. And I think that goes into what you teach on leadership. Like we learn to lead ourselves, we learn to evolve and to grow, and then we choose to share that with our partner. That's where passion and intimacy comes from. It's a marriage of choice, not obligation anymore. So I think when we see our parents and our grandparents happily together, it's because there was less choice in the matter. It was more dependency on each other financially, emotionally, physically to work together to create the family. But now there's so much independence, which is good, but
Yes.
it's we have to create a more choice-based marriage. And sometimes that means a lot of discomfort while we're growing and evolving, but we have to choose the discomfort. We have to choose to learn how to move through the discomfort skillfully. And that's what's not taught anywhere. That's what's new and revolutionary about kind of the new rules of marriage, as my mentor Terry Real would put it. He has a book called The New Rules of Marriage, and it's about this idea
Mm.
of differentiation, of creating this independence and choice at the same time.
You say about the book, and it reminded me, I got a book. It is very interesting, a chicken soup. The
Oh,
title is
for
a
the soul.
chicken soup.
Uh-huh.
And very short stories the married couples
Yes,
have
yes.
written, and it's beautiful because it's every story starts with some negative, with some stress, with some anger towards the spouse, either from the man to woman or other way around, and how they found themselves back. So it's very inspirational, and I think this is also something what should be promoted more often. Read these kind of books, read this kind of literature, and even if the fire is down, you can still find the right tools to fire that up. You mentioned about sharing what you want from the marriage. So we talk about communication. From your experience, on a scale 0 to 6, how are we doing in communication?
Well, that's a tough question for me to answer because I probably have a very skewed view of that.
Hmm.
Because all of the couples that come to see me, I would say 98% of the couples that come to see me, when I ask how I can be helpful or what what they want to work on, they all say communication in some form or another. And so to me, communication is a big one. Couples struggle with communication, especially the couples that I work with. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to give you a skewed view because that's all I do all day long, every day is work with couples on how they communicate with each other.
From work, what I have experienced, people, and I noticed that years ago, the literacy of expression has declined significantly. I don't know, is it the matter that we scroll more than gain really powerful, valuable knowledge, informations? Uh, I
I
believe
think that's a
so.
big part of it. I think that's a big part of it. I think in today's world of distraction, it's really easy to not communicate. I mean, we can communicate very transactionally through text or over social media. I think that communication now, especially with our children, is very, very surface and transactional,
Mm,
um, and very incomplete. For example, my kids, if you read their text messages to each other, it's very hard to know, you know, first of all, intimacy is very difficult, right? Even,
mm,
among kids, we want to connect. We want to feel accepted by our friend group. We want to know that somebody knows us and sees us and
mm,
accepts us, especially as children, right? But we want that as adults as well. And so if the main source of communication is transactional, meaning are you picking up the kid? Can you make this return? Who's on dinner tonight? Like those types of transactional exchanges happen over text. And then when we're around each other, we're very distracted by our devices. It's very easy to buffer, if there's a hard conversation that needs to be had or, something happens that we don't like, it's very easy to just pick up our devices, yeah, and start scrolling. In fact, I love a good meme. My friends send funny memes all the time. I think humor is very important.
mm.
But I imagine that a lot of times, if a hard conversation needs to be had between a couple, you just go to your phone, find a couple funny memes, and it's like, you kind of forget to have or you know, just de-emphasize the importance of
Mm.
having those hard conversations with each other because there's a lot of things to distract us.
Especially right now, around all the movements for women to be independent, to have power. And I don't, of course, will talk too much, but I believe there is also some kind of disruptive element when we speak about the equality.
Mhm.
Yes, and I like here personally the view of Jordan Peterson is sharing, and many others. And indeed, when we talk about equality, we somehow focusing on a higher rank components. And then in one of the interviews, he asked, okay, why you don't apply for job for the brick maker or carpenter? Why aren't we talking about these things? Roof repair. Why we don't talk about equality in all spheres in our life? And then getting into the marriage, we do have expectations. Like you mentioned at the beginning, to be provider, to be a lover. So somehow, in an egoistic manner, we position ourselves to have expectations, but what are my responsibility? Ah, that's not important.
Well, I think what's lost is our ability to communicate, negotiating these roles and responsibilities around the family. I think it's changed so much. I think if you go back and look at the 1950s, roles and responsibilities were very laid out in a very templated way. The husband would go to work, bring home the paycheck, provide for the family. The wife would nurture the home environment, take care of the children, clean the house, make the meals, right? It was very black and white. Whereas now, it's there's no set template to follow. It's like, how does it work for our family? Usually it's the husband and the wife that both work. They share the parenting responsibilities more equally. They take turns making the meals. And so it all needs to be communicated and negotiated in the different seasons, even. I know for me, we've gone through periods where both of us worked in a business together, my husband and now, then I took a break from the business and I predominantly stayed home with our 4 children. But I also built a business from home as I was raising the children while my husband worked in the business that we built together. And then, I sold the business that I built and started doing this. And my husband built the business sold the business that we sold and went back to work in a more traditional sense. I work from home, but I still work hours while my husband works outside of the home. But I've created, a scenario where I'm at home more often. But through these different seasons, we've negotiated different roles and responsibilities, right? There's times when my husband has been way more helpful at home, and there's times where he's been less helpful at home. There's been times where I've taken on responsibilities of homemaking, you know, just differently. But through each of these seasons, it's been very important for us to communicate about, is this still working for us? Is there something that needs to change here? And like I said, it requires not only just communication, because all of us can communicate, it requires skillful negotiation, meaning if something's not working for me, instead of stuffing it down or being passive aggressive about it, it requires me to communicate in a way that my partner won't get defensive. It requires my partner to learn skills to not be defensive, right? And to communicate in a healthy way back to me, right? What he can and can't provide. So I would say working with somebody like me, a coach, a counselor, to really understand the ways in which we communicate, not just skills. You can get skills anywhere. You can listen to this podcast. We haven't talked a lot about skills, but you can listen to podcasts, you can read books, you can go to seminars. You can learn skills in a lot of different ways. But what I do with couples is help them deal with the parts of themselves that won't use the skills. And those come from our adaptive children, the way we were raised, the way we adapted to our environment. That is what usually gets in the way of using the skill sets that we have. And so, what I do is a three-part way of working with couples. So we do a lot of data gathering to figure out what are people's losing strategies, what stands in the way of them communicating.
Mm-hmm.
Then we do a lot of work with the inner child. We call that trauma work in the presence of the partner, so that the partner not only understands where their partner is coming from, but also how their adaptations were formed. It creates a lot of compassion for that inner child and understanding around how they move and handle the world. And then we teach the skills, but only after we deal with those inner children who do not want to use the skills.
We are having this concept. We go for the workshop, get the certificate, we have a skill. It's not about that. It's the same with leadership. We go get a diploma. I am executive leadership coach.
Mhm.
Uh-uh. It's the huge work that has to be done before,
Mhm.
or even as a leader in the corporate world, right? It's somehow, does it also sound in you that this skill somehow will be appearing or developing in a natural manner because of the work that you have done on the stage 1 and 2?
Mhm. Yes. Yes. Because most of us have learned some manner of skills, but it's when we get triggered in conflict. So this can be either in the workplace or at home. When we get triggered, we don't want to use those skills. We want to protect ourselves. We want to win. We want to get our way. And so our adaptation comes out and we're no longer able to access whatever skills that we have. And so the most important skill is to recognize when our adaptive child has come online, when our prefrontal cortex has shut down, our amygdala has taken over, and we are in fight, flight, or fawn, which is more fix, right? So that's what our amygdala does. Like that's its job. It wants to protect us from harm, from danger, from this other human who is threatening us. And so once we can recognize that, then we can make choices around how we respond and the skills that we can access.
How often you have heard, especially at the beginning of the work with your clients, I thought she or he, after we get married, will change.
Mm-hmm. All the time.
Oh.
And my answer to that is, of course, they're going to change. Everybody changes. The only constant in life is change. Like, what makes me crazy is when I hear somebody say, they're not the person that I married. Of course, they're not the person that you married. They're not even the person that they were yesterday. We're constantly learning and evolving and updating our perspective of the world, our perception of the things happening around us. That's what we do as humans. So, of course, they're changing, but are they changing together? Are they understanding each other? Are they invested in learning about and, evolving alongside each other? That's the question.
And it can be also related that we enter the relationship even before marriage with our unspoken expectations
Mhm.
because we don't want to scare eventually, yes. And then we keep them here in our heart. After marriage, we wait until we blow from
Yeah.
anger that these expectations are not met. Do
Mhm.
you have these kind of, people coming
Yeah,
to
and
you?
again, that's just about communicating, right? That's about asking for what we want. It with loving power, right? So I think what happens is a lot of times is, yeah, we get into these conflicts and they don't go well. And so instead of bringing up the things that are important to us, we stuff them down or we buffer from them or we just don't have the skills to be able to stand up to our partner with loving power. And so that's why it's important to learn about our adaptations, our coping mechanisms, our losing strategies. That's what we spend time doing. We learn that about our clients, but they learn that about each
Mm.
other. And then we do that deep down trauma work that's really about getting to know the adaptation. So, how do you handle conflict? What does your adaptive child do to protect you in a conflict situation? And once you understand that, then you get the skills of how do I ask for the things that I want and need in this relationship instead of stuffing it down,
Mm.
instead of, you know, making it come out sideways in the form of resentment or passive aggression or depression or do we go up or do we go down, right? Do we have contempt for our partner or do we have contempt for ourselves? There are so many um, there are so many aspects of ourselves that we don't understand because we can't see the dynamic from the inside of the bottle. So, this is why I think coaching, counseling is so important for couples because they create a dynamic, but they can't see it or understand it because they're inside of it, where they need a third party's perspective to show them this is what you're doing, right?
Mhm.
And this is why you're not getting what you want, what you expect out of your relationship. You're not asking for it. So
Mm.
we equip partners to stand with each other toe to toe with loving power so they're both getting exactly what they want.
I am astonished. In every single aspect in our life, communication comes as number one drive for good or bad outcome. This is very interesting. And here, okay, we are a bit not well equipped in communicating, but we do have a choice. Why we do have more energy to show the angry response to uncomfortable situation rather than loving manner.
Yeah, that is those inner children because we want connection. It is the human need for connection. As babies will not survive or thrive without human connection. They absolutely require it. This is a study done years ago about babies, and that you could give them all of the food, shelter, things that they need, but without connection, without human touch and connection, they won't survive. And that doesn't change as a human need as we grow. It just changes form. But we still need connection with other human beings. We need physical touch and affection. We need understanding. We need people to see us and validate us, right? It's not a want, it's a need. It's a human need. And so we get so frustrated because we somehow believe, this is one of the myths in my book as well, that people can read our minds, that people just know who we are. And that's what we expect. But nobody can read our minds. Nobody just knows who we are, what we need, or what we want without communication. So it's all about learning how to communicate in a loving, powerful way.
It's interesting because quite often we will hear as a justification, she knows me already 10 years. He should know what I want. Okay, did you ever say no, but we are living together, so should know.
Yeah,
And
and that goes
that's
back to that idea that people can't read your mind. They don't know. And we're always changing. So what I thought I wanted 2 days ago might be completely different from what I want right now.
one time Gabor Mate was saying, even family, two parents, they are having three kids. A single kid does not have the same parents because they
Right.
come The first one came in certain age that parents have been on a certain journey. The
Yeah.
second, again, the dynamic in life has changed. Plus, there was another child. So many aspects in the life dynamic is changing, not only people that are growing or getting broken in mind, depression, so different status. And the third, again, very different scenario. That was actually very interesting, but it's so true.
Mhm.
Like you
Yeah.
say, this person was yesterday different than today.
Mhm. Yeah. And we can't know that without communicating. That's why I suggest that couples go for a 20-minute they connect for 20 minutes every day emotionally. So my husband and I, we go for walks, especially right now in the summertime. It was beautiful weather. So we walk every evening and we hold hands and we talk about the things that we learned that day and the things that are exciting to us and the things that are difficult for us every single day. It's
Mm.
so important because every day looks different for me and every day looks different for my husband. And every day we talk to new people, we learn new things and we read new articles and listen to new podcasts and we become different people with different needs and different goals and different desires. If you want to stay connected to your partner long term, I suggest this. What's amazing about this is that no matter how much money you make, no matter how many friends you have, no matter how much you can bench press, we all get the same amount of time. You can't buy more time, you can't barter for more time. Nobody gets more and nobody gets less. It's how you use this time. And I suggest spending 3% of your time connecting with your spouse. 3%. So
And I like that.
there's 1,440 minutes in everybody's day.
Oh,
Nobody
wow.
gets more, nobody gets less. So if you choose to spend 20 minutes connecting emotionally with your partner every single day,
Mm.
and you choose to spend 3 hours of the 168 hours that we all have in a week, 3 hours a week on date night, doing something fun, connecting, enjoying each other, 3 hours a week, and then 1 week per year. There's 52 weeks in a year. If you spend 1 week together on a vacation, doing something fun, it doesn't have to be expensive, elaborate, or far from home. You can go to a hotel in town. You can send the kids to your parents' house and just stay home. You can go on a fancy vacation, whatever. But if you are spending one weekend a year together as a couple,
Without kids.
without children, reconnecting, without devices, I would say. Leave your phones somewhere else. So 20 minutes, and all of these things are is with as little technology as possible. 20 minutes a day, 3 hours a week, one weekend to a week per year. That's going to keep you connected. That's going to keep you communicating with each other and that fire burning, whatever it is. If you struggle with conflict, get help.
Mm.
Learn how to communicate with each other. Learn about your adaptive children. Learn how to request and repair and get the things you need out of your relationship.
Very nice. And I like that especially. I hope you will agree with me. As Monica has said, when you go for the 20 minutes walk, don't talk about kids. What soup you made, how many socks you need to buy, the new books you have to create, whatever. Not about the kids, but the 20 minutes about you. And I think that's a wonderful scene for keeping this independency that eventually are connecting us. So we do have some our own passion. And if you have no idea, read the article outside your interest and bring something new to the table. Monica, thank you very much. When your book is coming, do you have already
My
date?
Yep, it launches August 12th on Amazon's.
August 12th. Okay.
But even now, you can go to the wait list, and that is badmarriageadvice.com. And when you sign up there for the waitlist of the book, you're going to get 300 date night ideas. I feel like date night is so important. So you're going to get 300
Mm.
ideas across all seasons and all price ranges.
Oh, wow. So that's an advice, that's a gift you cannot say no to. So even if you are feeling okay in your marriage right now, still the new learning, new inspiration can add the heat to the fire. And this is all about take care of the love, even if you lost it, rebuild it. You can do it. Monica, thank you very, very much for this conversation. And I wish you all the best, success with your new book, and success to your all couples to be
Thank you.
happily after.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.